Ms. Stephanie received her bachelor degree in psychology from Randolph-Macon College in 2006 and her master's in mental health counseling from Hofstra University in 2008. She spent 2 years working at South Oaks Hospital in Amityville, New York, in the inpatient and outpatient substance abuse programs. She moved on to the Wexter Children's Center in Laurel, Maryland, the only all-female juvenile detention facility in the state. In 2015, Ms. Will came to Montgomery College as a mental health services program manager. In her current role, she provides a number of training opportunities for faculty, staff, and students, including the Mental Health First Aid Certification Program.
Right.
I wanted to use this time to remind you to please use the chat function to type in your questions. We will have a question and answer section immediately following the presentation. And now we will hear from Stephanie Will.
All right. Thank you so much, Carly. I appreciate it. And I see we're a nice small group, so hopefully that means there will be plenty of time to answer questions and all that good stuff. So yes, I am Stephanie. I'm the Mental Health Services Program Manager here at the college, and I work with our Student Health and Wellness Center for Success. Just kind of a little bit about what we do here at the college. We have a number of different programs that we offer. I kind of take care of the mental health stuff. On Rockville campus, we've been doing Mindful Mondays activities, and since we've been in this online setting, that's open to all the college. We do pretty much exactly this mindfulness exercise that we're going to do today, and just kind of give an opportunity for everyone to kind of like pause, in that kind of midday, because I know sometimes if the morning's rough, we need to kind of reset ourselves before we're able to effectively continue on and have a hopefully better day in the afternoon. Like my bio said, I do the mental health first aid training. We do a lot of stress relief programming, and mindfulness is one of the big things that I really enjoy speaking about. Some of the other things that we offer, if you're familiar with the college mobile markets at all, that's something that happens out of the Student Health and Wellness Center. And great news for anybody who's interested, the mobile markets are starting back next Wednesday, the 12th at Germantown campus. So yay, from 2 to 4 p.m. I know everyone is probably very excited for that. And that's open to any county resident. So you don't have to be a Montgomery College student. And so information for that will be available on our social media pages. We also do some health and safety. We've done Zumba classes. We kind of do a little bit of everything related to health and wellness. So that's a little bit about what the shop. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make sure to unmute myself. So today we're going to talk a little bit about stress, something that I know everybody experiences, right? We're going to talk a little bit how it impacts our body, how it impacts our brain, as well as talking about mindfulness. Again, like I said, mindfulness is something that I really enjoy, and it is effective in combating stress. We're going to actually do a mindfulness practice that's about 15 minutes. Because I'm very practical, I'm very hands-on. I think the best thing we can do for ourselves is walk away with an actual skill. And then we're going to talk about some ways to incorporate mindfulness into our daily self-care regimen, because we should all have a daily self-care regimen. It doesn't matter if it's a long one or a short one. We need to do something for ourselves every day, right? All right, I am going to, I think, turn my video off so you're not paying attention to me, but to my voice. So first, a little bit about stress. Like I said, everybody experiences stress. Probably since March, you have been feeling more stressed than you normally do. It's something that I have very much noticed in, my work and in talking with people that work at the college, outside the college. A lot of times people are even saying that mentally they don't feel stressed, but their body is experiencing a lot of the signs of stress. So there's good stress. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't think that good stress exists, but it's something called eustress, if you want to know the fancy psych word for it. But basically, good stress is something that helps us focus and helps us get the task at hand done. When you finish with whatever that task is, generally, if it's in that good stress, you feel really accomplished. You feel like something challenged you and you overcame it, or you were able to, complete something and you feel good and you feel positive after that kind of stress. Whereas bad stress is probably the thing that we're, most familiar with. It's that frequent and intense strain on your body, and it makes it's really difficult to function. So that's when you're falling asleep when you're trying to study or work. You're forgetful. You're not able to do the things that we need to do because we feel so exhausted. And that's a lot of, I think, what people have been experiencing since we've gone to the quarantine COVID kind of lifestyle. A lot of people talk about stress and heart disease. Like if you're so stressed, you're going to have a heart attack. There's actually no direct link between stress and heart disease. But what we do know about stress is that what it does to our body is it increases our hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And if you know anything, like you've taken bio classes or anything like that before, you know that adrenaline is the thing that like makes your heart race. It makes you go. Like if you're running a race or running away from a bear or something like that, that's the adrenaline that kicks in that's trying to keep us safe, that fight or flight response. So if we're in that fight or flight response really often, it is going to increase our blood pressure. It's going to increase our heart rate. And that does lead to an additional strain on the cardiovascular system. So while there's not a direct link, that repeated chronic stress is having some sort of negative impact on our bodies. So how do we know that we might be too stressed? As you look at this list of signs, I want you to kind of take a moment, if you have a pen and paper, write down some of these things that you might experience when you're feeling too stressed. I've noticed in the last couple days, I've had some personal stuff going on in my life, and it's led to a lot of headaches personally. It's something else that I get a lot of muscle tension up in my shoulders and my neck. For some people, it's upset stomach, believe it or not. It can impact your appetite. So you might be hungry, but the thought of food doesn't sound very good. Change in your sex drive, trouble sleeping. Maybe you're waking up multiple times in the middle of the night, or you're laying in bed at night and your mind is just racing and you can't seem to fall asleep. A weakened immune system. I remember back in college, every year at the end of finals, I would get home and be on break. And the first thing that would happen is I would just be sick for a whole week because I was so stressed out due to finals that basically my immune system kind of gave up at that point in time. And I just got really sick. And that happens to a lot of people. So that can be another sign if you're getting sick a lot that you might be too stressed. Stress can actually cause a lack of motivation as well. So I know sometimes people be like, oh, I feel really lazy. I feel really lazy about, like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. For me, it's a lot of like, I don't want to do yard work. But a lot of that is that lack of motivation from being too stressed. It also impacts our ability to concentrate. So if you're a student as well, or you have a job where you have to focus quite a bit, if we're stressed, that's really impacting our ability to absorb the information that we need to. I'm going to totally cop to this. Irritability is a big one for me personally. I am not very pleasant to be around when I'm very stressed because I just get very irritable. And feeling overwhelmed is another big one. Just not knowing where to start. That kind of feeling where you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. And then it's 3 hours later and you still haven't moved or done anything because you don't even know where to start because you're so overwhelmed. So just kind of take an inventory, see where you might fall, or if there's maybe some other signs that you know of that tell you, I am definitely too stressed right now. There's also things called screeners that we can take. Mental Health America, they do a great stress screener, and you just answer a couple questions, and it will tell you, hey, maybe you should go talk to a primary care physician or a therapist and talk about stress and how to manage stress. It's not like a diagnostic tool or anything like that. It's not going to give you a diagnosis of anxiety or depression or anything. It just kind of tells you, hey, something might not be quite right now, so maybe you should talk to someone. So what is self-care? If you guys want to use the chat function, just kind of, what are some of your thoughts about self-care? What generally do you feel like self-care is? Anyone? Okay, well, self-care is basically what you do to take care of yourself. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? Self-care, taking care of your emotional needs. Thank you, Rebecca. Wonderful. Exactly. Taking care of your emotional needs, taking care of your physical needs. That's something that not everybody thinks about. You know, taking care of our physical health is part of self-care. Taking care of our environmental health. I don't know if anybody is like me. I hate cleaning so much, but when my house starts to get messy, it makes me very anxious and makes me feel very stressed and overwhelmed. So as much as I hate cleaning, I know that it's something that I need to take care of for myself personally. Any other thoughts on what self-care is? Immediate needs, such as a nice, relaxing, yes, a relaxing bath. I haven't taken a bath in forever. Thank you, Gloria. Great. So now, how important would you guys say self-care actually is to your daily life? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate self-care? 10. Okay. 10. Okay. Another 10. Yeah. So, okay. So we know how important self-care should be, right? But now my question to you is, how much actual time do you actually spend on self-care every day? Like in minutes every day, how much time would you say you spend on self-care? So do you spend any time on self-care every day? Do you do something for self-care every week? 4 minutes? Okay. Not enough. Try half hour a day. Yep. And look for a day where I can fit in more. Yeah. And honestly, sometimes that's all we can do, and that's just fine. But yeah, there never seems to be enough hours in the day is what it always ends up being, right? But if anyone else is a Grey's Anatomy fan, this is like one of my favorite. But when you're a student, when you're a parent, when you're, trying to take care of the people in your life, maybe you're dealing with elder care as well for parents or grandparents. Again, I've got my cats that I have to worry about. Sometimes it's, do I sleep? Do I shower? I could sleep in the shower, but I'm also starving. Can I eat in the shower too? We need to find some time to take care of those little things and add in a little bit of self-care where we can. And that's what I'm going to talk about towards the end of the presentation, ways that we can use self-care even in those little moments throughout the day. Grey's Anatomy fanatic, yes. I'm a couple of seasons behind, I'm not going to lie, but still one of my favorite shows. All right, so self-care. Introverts versus extroverts. Self-care is something that's different for everybody. There's no one way to take care of yourself. It's very personalized. In my role at the college, students come up to me all the time and say, what should I do for self-care? What's something that's going to work? And I say, I don't know. You got to figure that out for yourself, because one of the things that I love to bring to events that are, stress relief events is I bring a lot of coloring, because some students just love coloring. I can tell you, coloring is my worst nightmare because I get so over involved in it and ends up making me more stressed. So I know that coloring is not a self-care thing for me. For some people, those extroverts who recharge by being around people, it might be doing something with your family, going to the park, hosting a meal at your house for all your family members. And that might be great. And you might feel so energized afterwards. For me, that's great. And I love doing that, but I'm probably going to sleep for a day and a half afterwards because I'm very much an introvert, and that's going to be hard for me. So while that might be fun and it might be great, it's probably not good self-care for me. Another thing is making sure that we are scheduling self-care time. And I know that sounds a little weird to some people, like, oh, I need to put it in my daily schedule along with, make sure you run to the grocery store. But we have to think about, if we're not going to prioritize our well-being, who is prioritizing our well-being? Having children, they are worried about them, right? If you have your supervisor at work or your employees at work, or, your parents, siblings, everyone's kind of focused on them. And it's great that we care and we want to help and we want to do for everybody, but we need to make sure we're prioritizing ourselves in there. And it's not selfish, it's taking care of yourself. Another thing I like to talk about is work, school, and life boundaries. People like to talk about balance, but honestly, balance doesn't exist. That teeter-totter is always going to be going back and forth. Sometimes there's going to be more family stuff. Sometimes there's going to be more work stuff or school stuff. That teeter-totter is kind of going all over the place all over the time. But what a good boundary is all about being present in what you're doing at that moment. And those of you who are working from home or doing school from home, those boundaries have deteriorated probably quite a bit right now. I know they certainly have for me, as you saw earlier, my cat sitting on my lap while I'm trying to do a presentation. But those boundaries are about being present in what you're doing and trying to separate those things as much as we can. So that means that when you're in family time, not checking the work email. When you're doing schoolwork, that you're trying to separate yourself from your kids a little bit, have them do their own activity, even if it's in the same room, but making sure that you can focus as much attention as you possibly can on whatever it is you're doing. So you're giving as much of yourself to that as you can, and we're not constantly back and forth and losing focus and losing that concentration from whatever we're doing. And that's hard, trust me. That is a challenge. I'm not saying it's not, but the more we practice it, the better we get at it. We have to be more intentional about this during COVID-19. Some of the things that we can do is to define your workspace separately from your family spaces. So me personally, I have a craft room. I eventually did turn it into my office because I needed a little bit more separation. But initially, for me, the dining room table was where I did my work stuff. I didn't eat there. I didn't watch TV there. It was just my workspace. And then literally I could reach out and touch my couch with my arm, but that was my relaxing space. That was my personal space. And I didn't do work over there. I didn't bring my computer over there unless it was, I'm watching funny videos on YouTube or something like that. So trying to define those spaces as much as you possibly can. And like I said, some days it is not going to work the way that we want it to, but one of the important aspects of self-care is self-compassion, so that when things kind of all fall apart and don't go the way we want them to, understanding that, that happens to everybody. The best laid plans just don't always work out the way we want them to, and that's all right. That's when we use things like mindfulness to reset ourselves, kind of take a moment and say, all right, it doesn't have to wait till tomorrow to get better. It can get better in 5 minutes while I be mindful. So that's something that we can definitely do, and be compassionate, not beat ourselves up when things don't go the way that we want them to go, because that is life. So mindfulness, what is it? It's essentially paying attention on purpose, which kind of sounds weird or stupid to some people because they're like, well, of course I pay attention. What I like to use as a good example, me personally, I'm using a lot of personal examples. You guys are going to know so much about me by the end of this presentation. I commute about an hour and 15 minutes from my home to the college every day. Not currently, but usually I do. And a lot of days I get to work and I couldn't tell you what happened on the drive to work. And it's not that my eyes weren't open, that I wasn't looking at the road, but I wasn't engaged. I wasn't mindful, and I wasn't present in driving because we just kind of go on autopilot. When we have a morning routine, think about that. Like if your routine gets messed up and you're thinking about, wait, did I brush my teeth? Like my routine got messed up because we're always on that autopilot at certain points in our life because we don't have to think about it. It's just what we do every day. But beyond just paying attention, it's also being in the moment without judgment. So if we're being mindful of our emotions or our physical body or what's going on around us, and we're like, oh man, like I'm more irritated than I thought, that's okay. We don't judge what we're feeling. We don't judge what we're experiencing. All emotions are valid. And we need to remind ourselves of that. If we're angry, that's valid. We're allowed to feel angry about things. We're allowed to feel irritated. We're allowed to feel sad about things. It's just about knowing yourself, knowing where you're at, and then being able to use some other self-care techniques to see if maybe if I can improve where I'm at right now. It also helps us really tune into how we interact with the world and interact with people in our world as well. So we're going to do the set aside time for meditation today, but we're also going to talk a little bit about micro mindfulness minutes that we can use as we're going through and doing our everyday things. So I've talked about we're doing a mindfulness meditation today, but generally speaking, people will kind of use mindfulness and meditation similarly, but they're not entirely the same thing. Meditation is kind of an umbrella term. There's a lot of different types of meditations we can do. And personally, if anyone's ever been to a yoga class before, I like to think of meditation as like your shavasana at the end of class, where you're laying down or maybe you're sitting up. But it's all about clearing your mind, emptying out your mind of everything that's going on. Maybe you're trying to achieve a higher state of being or a deeper rest state. I'm not good at that. I'm just not. My brain does not turn off that way. That is not the way that I am personally wired. So meditation is actually very frustrating for me because I'm always like, okay, well, once I leave yoga class, then I have to do X, Y, and Z, and then I get mad at myself. So meditation is not for me personally, because mindfulness is that directed paying attention. It can be a type of meditation, but we're actively doing something. So the meditation we're going to be doing today is a breathing meditation. So for that 15 minutes, we're basically just going to be paying attention to ourselves breathing, engaging our five senses. What do we hear? What do we feel? What do we smell in the world around us? We can do mindfulness when we're cooking, cleaning. One of the things that we're doing this summer with the Shaw Center is walk with the Shaw Center. And on Friday mornings, we have a meditation walk. So I basically do a half an hour spoken meditation while we're walking through our own personal neighborhoods, while we're on Zoom. We can do that mindfulness, that paying attention during pretty much anything in our lives. So this mindfulness meditation is going to be consciously choosing to focus your attention on something specific. And if our minds wander, that's totally fine. As the instructions are going to tell you as we're going through, just notice whatever it is that kind of drew your attention away, and then bring it back to whatever we're going to be focusing on, which in this case is going to be our breath. So as we're going through it, just important to remember that this is a no judgment space, definitely a no judgment space. That mindfulness, like any other self-care practice, might not work wonders the first time you do it. It takes practice. The more we do something, the better we get at it, the more effective it's going to be. Or you might hate it. You might be like, Stephanie, this is the stupidest thing that I've ever done in my life. And that is fine too. And I will not, you do you. There's no judgment from me if this is not something that you like. Just a little bit about some research that backs this up. Basically, there's been a number of studies on mindfulness that have been done that it shows it increases our emotional awareness, because like I said, this particular one is going to be focused on our breathing, but you can do mindfulness exercises to tune into your emotional process, what's going on with you. It helps reduce anxiety. Again, dealing with that heart rate, getting your heart rate down. It's helpful in work settings. So if you have to go into an office, there's mindfulness exercises that you can do at your desk. I do those frequently. And it can also help improve our memory and concentration. So for those of you who do have, mentally taxing jobs or are students, memory and concentration are kind of the two most important things you need. Especially when you're a student, because if you can't pay attention in class and can't remember what you learned, that's going to cause some problems. So this is something that can be helpful for that. There are some limitations to mindfulness. This is not a cure-all. It's not something that's, you're going to do it and wow, it's cured my depression, it's cured my anxiety. It's not a replacement for medical or mental health treatment. If you're dealing with major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, it's still really important to continue to work with a therapist, with a primary care physician, psychiatrist, whoever you may work with. But this is just one tool that we can put into our tool belt that can help us. Because if you think about it, when your frustration or your stress level gets to like an 8, isn't it a lot harder to bring it down than if your frustration level gets to a 4? So thinking about using that mindfulness to tune into your emotional state, okay, I feel like I'm starting to get upset. Now I'm going to do something to bring that down rather than waiting until we are very upset about something to try then trying to bring ourselves down, because that's a little bit more challenging. So again, this is a tool that goes into the tool belt. For anybody who might have any, physical, either wounds or I can't think of the word, if you say fractured your foot or you've dealt with trauma in the past, mindfulness can be triggering sometimes, and you can get stuck ruminating on that pain. I know yesterday when I was doing my meditation walk, as I was meditating, I'm currently in an ankle brace, and I really acutely felt that pain that I was dealing with because I was particularly tuned into it. So if you have anything like that going on, just kind of pay attention to the exercise, but you don't necessarily have to go through the exercise. This can still be effective for people who are dealing with trauma or physical injury. But it's best if it's led specifically in a one-on-one setting with somebody who is a specialist in mindfulness. So with that said, I'm going to go into our activity. So just get comfortable, relax as much as you can. If you're in a space to lay down, you can do that. You can take a seat. And we are going to listen to the wonderful relaxing sounds of my favorite breathing meditation. If for whatever reason y'all can't hear it or whatever, please let me know in the chat right away.
This next practice is a breathing meditation. In this style of meditation, we focus on breathing not because there's anything special about it, but because that physical sensation of breathing is always there. Throughout the practice, you may find yourself caught up in thoughts, emotions, sounds. Wherever your mind goes, simply come back again to the next breath. If you're distracted the entire time and come back just once, that's perfect. Sit comfortably. Find yourself a stable position you can maintain for a while, either lying on the floor or a bed or sitting in a chair. Close your eyes if you like, or you can choose to leave them open and gaze downward towards the floor. And then draw your attention now to the physical sensation of breathing, perhaps noticing the always present rising and falling of your abdomen or your chest. Perhaps instead noticing the air moving in and out through your nose or mouth. With each breath, bring attention to these sensations. There's nothing you need to do or make happen. And if you like, mentally note breathing in and breathing out. Many times over, you'll get distracted by thoughts or feelings. You may feel distracted more often than not. That's normal. There's no need to block or eliminate thinking or anything else. Without giving yourself a hard time or expecting anything different to happen, when you discover that your attention has wandered, notice whatever's distracted you and then come back again to the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. There's no need to strive to make yourself feel anything special or to get anywhere or to block anything out. There's not even a goal of relaxation. That may happen, but you can't force yourself into feeling anything at all. Simply noticing each time you find your attention somewhere else and returning it gently back again to your breath. Practice as well pausing before making any physical adjustments, such as moving your body or even scratching an itch. It's always okay to take care of yourself, and with intention, shift at a moment you choose, allowing a space between whatever it is you're experiencing and what you choose to do next. And wherever your mind is right now, returning again to the next breath. You may find your mind wandering constantly, caught up in a whirlwind. That's normal too. Instead of wrestling with or engaging with those thoughts as much, practice observing, noting wherever your attention has been, and then returning again to the physical sensation of breathing. Don't try to hold on too tightly to the sensation of breathing either. If you feel yourself straining or tight, Let go. Ease up a little. The mind will remain busy whatever you do. Seek balance. If you find yourself mostly daydreaming and often fantasy, devote a little effort to maintaining your focus. Let go of any sense of trying to make something happen. For these few minutes, create an opportunity to not plan or not fix or whatever else is your habit. Breathing in and breathing out, returning your attention to the breath each time it wanders elsewhere. If you find yourself distracted through most of the practice and come back to just one breath, that's perfect. Continue to practice observing without needing to react. Just sit and pay attention as best as you're able. As hard as it is to maintain, that's all there is. Come back over and over again without judgment for yourself or expectation. So continuing to practice, note wherever your mind is right now and come back again to breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. Take a moment and notice any sounds in the environment. Notice how your body feels right now. Notice your thoughts. And emotions. And then pausing for a moment, decide how it is you'd like to continue on with your day.
All right. So what are some of your thoughts about that exercise? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it kind of like, all right, whatever? Did you like the guided aspect of it? Was that disruptive to you? Just kind of some thoughts that you had about it.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, I really liked it. I think that as I was doing it, I'm like, wow, it's a long time I haven't really paid so much attention to myself in that it was soothing.
Okay.
It made me realize that I need to do this a little bit more often.
Okay.
And you had mentioned something about how stressed out we are. I had felt very stressed out when it first started, because then I had to work at home, and to me, I'm still working more than if I was in the office.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah.
I feel like
They were saying for a long time, well, some businesses, you can't work at home, and now we are really forced to work at home. And I could accomplish so much, but I'm glad for this. I think it made me realize that I got to take more time for myself.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So, and there are certain things that probably I need to either add or take away from my life to make it better. And it was good to hear you say that there are good stresses and bad stresses.
Yes.
Sometimes we focus more on the bad stress because that's affecting us so much.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so much good stress out there that we can't, discount how important that is, for challenging us and making us feel positively. So yeah, great. And actually that hopefully rolls right into what we're going to talk about very briefly, because I want to make sure I have some time for questions if you have any, is how do we actually apply this mindfulness into our daily routine? Because like I said, you can either do like a 15-minute meditation like this. Frankly, if you want, you can find hour meditations. I personally don't have that kind of attention span. I like the guided meditations because my mind wanders so much. It kind of reminds me what I'm supposed to be doing. Other people don't like the guided aspect of it. They would rather just sit quietly themselves. If you can get a quiet space, that's great. Life is life, and there's no such thing as a perfectly quiet space from what I have found in life. So, that's the beauty of mindfulness. If there's a little chaos going on in the background, that's fine. That no judgment piece to it. But we can use mindfulness in these micro minutes throughout the course of our day. So you can either carve out a couple minutes here or there to just focus on a few breaths, even if it's only 5 breaths. Just close your eyes and observe 5 different breaths, or do a quick body scan, starting at your feet. Kind of notice all of your muscle groups, notice paying attention to areas where you carry stress. Again, for me, sorry, my cat is deciding to take this moment to get into things. I know I carry it in my shoulders. I carry it in my jaw. I find my teeth are clenched. So checking in with those areas is another really good way to incorporate mindfulness that way. Being mindful as we're actually performing different tasks. Taking a shower. I love showers. I love just like a nice hot shower. But when we're kind of getting ready in the morning, you know, we might be rushing, like, oh my gosh, I'm a couple of minutes late. So being able to actually stop, slow down, and actually enjoy the shower, you know, like all the nice smelling shampoos and all that good stuff that we have, you know, that can be a very relaxing moment. And it doesn't have to be a longer shower. It just has to be a more aware shower. Again, driving, putting your kids to bed, eating is something that we so often don't do mindfully. We very often just kind of, you know, rushing from one thing to the next. Maybe we're in the car and we're just trying to eat as fast as we can, but just trying to be as mindful as possible. Even just one meal a day. It doesn't even have to be every meal, just one meal a day where we take that moment to be mindful. Another thing that we can do is before we switch gears in our life, because we have so many gears in our life, is taking that 3 or 5 mindful breaths. So like I said, I've kind of created 2 separate spaces for work and personal. So I eat my lunch downstairs, and before I come back upstairs, I just close my eyes and take a couple breaths, and I kind of switch from, you know, lunch mode to going back to work mode. And, you know, you can do that from, you know, putting your kids to bed, taking a couple, you know, breaths after that and being like, okay, going from parent mode to going to personal mode. So again, I mentioned checking in with your body. In our interactions with others, we can be mindful as well. Listening to understand, listening to actually listen to what a person has to say, not necessarily just listening to respond. That's, I think, just people in general, that's kind of like our biggest fault that we tend to have is when somebody's talking about something, we're like, oh, I have something great I want to say as soon as they finish talking. But that means we're not really listening. We're not really understanding what they're saying. So being mindful of what other people are saying, trying to understand what people are saying. And in your relationships with your children, that could be a huge thing as well. Finding some small time where you can pay attention to drinking your coffee. Yeah, absolutely. Coffee is a great thing to just be mindful over. I personally don't love coffee, so I tend to drink that fast. But if I get like a nice chai, like a good latte or something, I totally like to savor that. Again, doing gratitude. If you've never done like a gratitude journal, that's a really fantastic way to be mindful. I try to do gratitude. Like I'm not personally a very religious person, so I don't necessarily pray before meals. But what I like to do is I like to think of 3 things that I'm grateful for before each meal. It's just something I do to kind of check in. No matter how bad, you know, things might have been going, if I can find 3 things that I'm grateful for, even if it's just I woke up this morning, it helps put me in a different frame of mind and be mindful of the positive things that I have going on. Engaging 5 senses. We do soothing jars, Play-Doh, bubble wrap. I think pretty much everybody loves popping bubble wrap. Using scented lotions or candles. I love good smelling things. Smell is like my sense that helps me relax. So I think I have everything that was ever made that includes lavender in it. I have so much lavender in my house, but it helps me feel relaxed and helps me to be mindful. And there's also apps that we can download that are free. Mindfulness Daily, Headspace is a really popular one. Calm, the VA put one out called Mindfulness Coach. You know, they have meditations on there that you can use, or some of them have like little reminders, so you can set it for specific times during the day, and it'll beep and say, "Hey, take 3 mindful breaths." So that's kind of a cool feature I found as well. Although I ended up having to delete mine because all the times it was set for, it was like the worst times of day. And I'm like, I'm in a meeting. I can't take 3 mindful breaths right now. So, you know, it all depends on your schedule and what works best for you. And I think if you take nothing else away from today, I want you to take away that, you know, sometimes it's trial and error. You know, try some things, try some self-care techniques, try mindfulness. If you've done it for a while and you don't really feel benefit, dump it and find something else, because not everything works the same way for everybody. And it's all about finding what works for you. Yes. Massages are wonderful too. I wish I could afford massages more often because I would definitely get them all the time. Okay, so here are some resources. If you're interested, mindful.org, that first link, meditation or mindfulness meditation guided practices, that's where I got the meditation we did today. It also has a body scan meditation. Loving kindness meditations are actually really good too, if you wanted to check those out.